Hello and welcome back to KXAN Plus. Happy Sunday. I'm your host, Esmeralda Zamora, and today on our KXAN Plus show, we have our segment Weather Answers with Rich with KXAN Meteorologist Rich Segal. Rich, welcome back.
It's good to be back. It's been a while since we've done this, and now you have a new set. I
We
think
do.
I'm the last one to be able to be a participant in your new set, on your new
Last but
set.
certainly not least, and we even have our brand new Weather Answers with Rich graphics
Yes,
that
that's
look
really nice.
amazing.
I love it.
So, how do you feel about the space? Do you like it?
I like it. I like the darkened room. It makes it very comfortable in here, and we're ready to go.
We
By
are.
the way, happy Father's Day to all the
Yes.
dads celebrating.
Happy Father's Day to all. And what better Father's Day with this great weather outside in Austin right now, right?
hmm
Well, let's jump into our Weather Answers with Rich. This is a segment where our meteorologist, Rich Segal, answers viewer questions every Sunday. And our first question to kick off our show this week is sometimes you talk about the dew point and sometimes you talk about the relative humidity. But what is the difference?
All right. Have a little graphic for you that identifies what the difference is between the two. The dew point versus the relative humidity. The dew point is the temperature, the actual temperature at which the air is saturated. The highest dew point that I've ever seen has been 95 degrees. Fortunately, that doesn't happen here, but it's more for comfort than it is anything else. But it's a temperature, it's not a percentage. The humidity is a percentage, and it's a percentage of the moisture that is in the air. These two things essentially tell you the same thing. If the air is humid, if the air is dry. The higher the number, the higher the dew point, the higher the saturation is. And right now, these are current dew points here at about 10:50 on this Sunday morning. And you see dew points in the low 80s over at LaGrange and Flatonia. That air very saturated over there, and that is leading to heat index values right now over 100 degrees, and it's not even 12 o'clock. More respectable dew points can be found out in the hill country, the lower to mid 70s and then mid and upper 70s to low 80s along and east of I-35. So again, you see these are temperatures. The dew point has a temperature of 72 degrees. Meanwhile, the humidity, you see this is in percentage, and the air is at 74% saturation here in Austin. Higher numbers off where the dew points are higher in Flatonia and in LaGrange, and even over at Blanco, they have a current humidity of 61%. So they are fairly saturated right now. I mean, I don't even want to leave the building today to walk out into that humid air that we'll have. And these numbers will fall off as we get further into the afternoon. Because again, when you look at heat index, you combine the temperature. You can combine temperature and humidity, or you can combine temperature and dew point to come up with the same number.
Yeah, and like you mentioned, I don't even want to step outside and feel that humidity
No,
this morning.
no.
You could tell it had just rained, but you could feel it on your skin.
You wear it.
You could wear it.
That's
Yeah.
that's the we know we say that a lot. Kristen has said that several times. I've heard her on her morning shows.
It's weather that you can wear.
Whether that yes, exactly.
And our second question is why does the Sahara dust affect our sky this time of year?
Well, it's very simple. This is the time of the year when the winds are coming out of Africa, moving across the Atlantic into the Gulf, and from the Gulf they come through the Caribbean, and then through the Caribbean into the Gulf. It's a trade wind coming from east to west. And the peak season for this is when the dust seems to be a little more pronounced coming across the ocean. The peak actually started a few weeks ago. Since we weren't here last week, these are the questions that we were going to air last week, but the peak season is now through August, and we don't have much of it today. I was looking at the latest from the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality to see if the haze that we're seeing had anything to do with the dust. What the dust does do, it creates respiratory problems for people. That fine particulate matter that can get into your nasal cavity, can get into your lungs, and it creates some issues for people that have respiratory issues too. They also give you pretty sunrises and pretty sunsets. This is the latest Saharan dust that goes out to 4 o'clock this afternoon, 4 or 5 o'clock. We're not seeing the dust today. There was no there was no increase in any of the dust. So I think this graphic is a little bit off. But when we do have the dust, you'll see that show up in this yellow shade. Right now, the majority of this is over the eastern half of the Atlantic, but another plume is going to be here probably by the middle of the week.
Wow. So we can expect that anyone who suffers from asthma or has any
Yes.
certain kind of allergy, just be aware of this when you go outside.
It's just like when we have the agricultural burning down in Mexico and in Central America, when that dust travels to the north.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it gets on up here and it settles into the area, and it could get into your nasal cavities, get into your lungs, and it causes some issues. So they're essentially doing the same damage physically to people, and that's why we are rejoicing by the time August is done, because by the time August ends, the dust is done for another year.
And one of my questions for you, Rich, related to this topic is if anyone is wondering what kind of dust is in the air or maybe the pollen count, where can they go to keep track of that?
KXAN.com, and then on the weather and traffic tab, you'll look for the allergy forecast. I believe it's in the first column, and that is where people can find what the latest pollen counts are. We have a 24-hour moving count, and so a lot of people really enjoy that. They get to see what the count was at any hour in the past 24, see when the pollen spiked, to see when there was very little that was being released into the air. And then we will always talk about the Saharan dust when there is a reason to do so.
Yep.
And we'll put that in our weather discussion at KXAN.com too, so that people have a general idea of what it is in the air that is causing that beautiful blue sky that we like in spring, when it's just that azure blue. It's like, oh, day, look at how pretty that sky is. But then that haze comes in and it makes it a little murky.
A little orangey too.
Yeah.
In the evening. Well, our third question here is, did Austin have a tornado on May 28th?
Good question. Well, let's see. Let's go back to, I think I dropped it. I think I've lost a graphic because I had a graphic in here called a microburst. So let's just go back. We can actually take that out, and we'll go back to that in a few minutes.
Okay.
No, there was no tornado on the 28th. It appeared, for some people who thought there might have been, it was because we had a microburst. This is a strong gust of wind that comes at the tail end of a decaying thunderstorm, and it gives a very strong wind profile. And that's what we had in Travis County. Nick Bannon did a really wonderful blog on this, KXAN.com. And if you'll go to the weather blog section and click on it, you will find the blog that he did on this. It also shows the map that the microburst took in Travis County. It didn't last too terribly long. They don't last long, but they do a lot of damage and cause a lot of concern for people. And so there was no tornado on the 28th like there was in the Wimberley area this past week.
Well, I remember that day in late May driving to work from home in the morning, and I have to go through the east side of kind of South Austin. And it definitely looked like a tornado blew through there. There was trees on the ground, roofs were collapsing, fences were gone. It was very destructive, and I can't believe it was just winds that did that damage.
That's
you find
right.
your graphic?
Well, no, I'm not even finding the graphic. I can't go back to the graphic that I had. All right. Well, let's go to the next question anyway.
I'm one of the newbies. You mentioned sometimes people talk about brownouts. What are they?
Brownouts are temporarily are things that happen temporarily. No, you don't need the graphic because the graphic has long since gone.
Technology.
I'm telling you, when I ran the show earlier, everything was there, and now I've got a graphic up that I don't even need. Brownouts happen, especially for our area during the summertime when the electrical authority wants to have something that they call rolling brownouts. It's when there's a temporary dim of the lights as the voltage is dropped. And then it goes back up and it's dropped in other areas, and they just keep rolling them through. These happen particularly on days where the temperatures are very, very hot. We're talking about temperatures in triple digits as opposed to a blackout. And of course, the blackout is when there is a complete loss of power. So brownouts are temporary. Blackouts are also temporary, but it takes longer for the blackout to be repaired than it does for the brownout, because you know that the lights may dim and then they'll again go back up into full power as the rolling brownouts continue to move over the area.
Have you ever experienced a brownout at home?
Mm-hmm.
I think I experienced it last week where the lights kind of dimmed a little bit and then came right back up. They were trying to conserve energy, I guess.
That's the reason for it. It's energy conservation to avoid blackouts.
Mm-hmm. Especially on times like these past 2 weeks where we've had some pretty chaotic weather.
Yes.
Well, Rich, I think these are all the questions.
Yeah, they are.
We are having some technical issues.
Well,
with the graphics.
it's not so much the computer as it is me.
It's okay. We also have this this blog up on our website, KXAN.com, and this is a blog that Rich published yesterday, right?
Mm-hmm.
It is titled "Summer Nights Getting Warm Each Year." You can find it on our homepage. Rich, what is something that our viewers can learn from this article?
Well, one of the things that we have noticed over the past several years, going back to the 70s up to 2020 to 2024, is that summer nights are becoming much warmer than they were back in the 70s before the onset of global warming. What we have noticed is there is an average of 3.1 degrees where the summer nights have become a little warmer than they were many, many years ago. For example, in Austin, in the 1970s, our average morning low temperatures were between 72 and 73 degrees. Here in 2024, 2025, our average low temperature has climbed to 74.1. And in the next set of data that comes out in 2030, 2031, we'll find that number will have grown. They update the normals every 10 years. And so right now we're working with data from 1991 to 2020. That graphic there shows the 3.1 degree difference between the 1970s and what is happening now. So we have seen a little bit of an increase, significant increase. I mean, a 3-degree increase is a significant increase in the amount of heat that we're having. They, our partners at Climate Central, in an article that they wrote, indicated that the top 5 cities that have experienced the increase in days. Can you scroll back down from that? And you see this graphic right here. This is talking about how climate change is increasing the morning lows from very little in the 1970s, and you see that graph going up. It means that we have had more than 40 days of above normal low temperatures in our viewing area, and that number will continue to climb. They found that the top 5 cities that experienced the greatest number of warm summer nights the top 5 have all been in Florida, West Palm Beach, Orlando, to name 2 of them. That's covered in the article.
Miami, Tampa.
Miami,
Fort
Tampa.
Myers.
That's it. Very good. You read it. Thank you. But most of these, again, as far as the overall number of days, this is also very prevalent from Texas all the way into the Southwest. But there were parts in the country that have not experienced this rapid warming that has gone on over the course of time. And a lot of this has got to do with the fact that we are still in the climate change era.
Yes, we are. And you can expect to continue to see these types of temperatures as we continue through summer, right?
I think so. You know, the average low temperature so far in June is a little more than 76 degrees, and so that is normal. I mean, that is warmer than the actual average for the first part of June, which is 72.3.
Mm-hmm. So it's going to get warmer here in
Yeah,
Central Texas.
and here's the problem. The problem is that some people don't have adequate cooling in their domiciles. Boy, I used that word once before, and somebody laughed at me. In their homes. Yes. It's difficult for the body to cool itself when you have these hot, sticky days and then these warm summer nights.
So what are some things that we can do at home to get used to this type of weather?
Well, the thing is that it's what we all have to do as a collective group, and that is to go to a website, find what you can do in order to help mitigate the effects of climate change. But a lot of this has to do with business and industry as well doing their part.
Yes. Well, Rich, this was our Sunday weather answers with Rich for this weekend. We will come back next weekend with another one.
Yes.
We're
We'll have some
finally
good questions next week, too. And if you do have one, by the way, I don't mean to interrupt you, I'm sorry. Please send it to us to reportit@kxan.com.
Yes, you can submit all the answers or all the questions there, and Rich will see them and prepare them for our next segment. Rich, thanks so much for joining me. If anyone is watching right now on social media, don't forget you can also download our streaming app. Anywhere you get your streams, that's Roku, Fire TV, and Apple TV. We will be expanding that pretty soon, but you can find episodes like this one and much more, as well as other exclusive content on our streaming platform app. And we will be back here at 3 p.m. with our Tommy's Travel Forecast, so stay tuned. Thanks so much for joining us, Rich.
Thank you.